Today we are going to be starting on the front lip on the Bosozoku car. We are waiting on some pieces. We have to wait on our trailer hitch receivers. That is going to allow us to make this thing very easily detachable in a emergency situation. But since we're waiting on those are getting delivered today at the house. We are going to start off with making the pre-made fiberglass sheet. So we're going to set this down, retape it, and then do a giant piece of fiberglass so that way we can use it as the top piece once the framing is done for the lip. So it's been a couple days since we made that giant sheet of fiberglass. We ran into some issues, and the things that were supposed to come in that day that I wanted to start making up this front lip didn't come in until super late at night, about 9 o'clock. So we didn't get much done, but we were waiting on these things. I got 2 of these, and this is how we are going to make our front lip detachable. I've had the idea to use these things before I even bought this car because I was wondering how in the world I'm going to be able to drive this thing with this massive lip, which you can see our tape line here. It's going to be about that long, which isn't even nearly as long as they can get, but this is a good length where I think it's going to fit the car, and it's not going to be absurdly long and impossible to drive anywhere with it. So the whole point was to use these things. Yes, I have my fair share of concerns, as I'm sure some of you guys will be. This is quite heavy, but we're going to try and cut off as much of it as possible. And then also, these don't exactly fit into here very tightly. They are a little bit loose, so I'm hoping that once it's on there and the whole thing is built, and because there's going to be 2 of them, there's just going to be a lot less movement. And even if there is a little bit more movement, we can always add some shims in here, or we can, you know, put some tape just so it reduces some of the movement in there. I'm not sure what we're going to do about it yet, but I don't think it'll be too much of an issue because we're going to have 2 of them. But this is the easiest and quickest way that I could think of that we would be able to take off this front lip if there was ever any kind of major speed bump or obstacle in the road that we would need to avoid. So these will be welded up to where these, I guess, tow hooks are. We're going to be making new plates. I got some nice cold rolled steel here. That's the same exact thickness, so we're gonna have to take these off. We're gonna make our pattern, and then we're gonna weld these up. And I got these because we have both sides of the receiver, so we'll be able to cut this off. Obviously this will be attached to the actual lip part, and then this will be attached to the car. All it would take would be for me to stick my hand under here, under both sides, pull the one pin and pull the other pin, and the entire thing would be able to just slide off. And it's going to be a size where I would be able to put this into my Escalade or into another car or whatever, or if need be, we could just strap it to the roof. Also, another thing that I got while I was out is I got some 3/8" rope. I got a few suggestions on how to make the fiberglass stronger without really adding a ton of weight, and you'll see throughout the progression of building this front lip that we're going to be using some different materials. We're going to try and encase that in some of this, just because it's going to be hanging out so far from the car that we need as much rigidity as possible without being too heavy, because obviously the heavier it gets, the more rigidity we're going to need to be able to try and keep all this up. I really don't want to have any of the eyelets that they sometimes use and go back to the car to try and hold it up. I'm really going to try and make it look as clean as possible. But someone had suggested using rope and putting it down on top of the fiberglass in whatever pattern, and then encasing that in fiberglass. And so we're going to try and use this method. We're going to try and use some wood, and then we're also going to use metal as far back as possible, just to try and make this thing as rigid as possible, as stiff as possible, but also as light as possible, especially as we get out towards this edge, because there is so much overhang, and we're really going to have to try and figure everything out and try and make it as light as possible. I'm going to try and do my best to make this thing, and we're gonna see how it goes. This is not gonna be a quick process. This is going to take a few days at least, but as you see, I already made the fiberglass for the top side, so we're on our way there. We just really gotta start taking all this thing apart, start welding some stuff up, and from there we can just kind of start figuring out where everything is gonna be. In addition to the mirrors, this is another thing that a lot of you guys don't like about these cars. I know it's not a very popular aesthetic, I guess. I'm not sure what you would call it, but it's not a very popular thing in the US car scene to like these cars when they have the massive lips, but this is really what is going to make this car stand out, and it's just what a lot of them do. This car is going to have the full aero, and it's going to have the silhouette wing as well. This is going to be a full-on Bozo car. We are going for it, and it's just how it's going to be. Yes, the lip is going to be huge and ridiculous, but that is part of it, and I think it looks awesome. So if you don't like it, that's okay. Not a lot of people do like it, but I like it, and I'm going to do it because I think it's awesome. Anyways, guys, we're going to go ahead and start cutting some stuff up, welding some stuff up, and start getting this structure built out. So I haven't updated you guys in a while because I really didn't know what I was doing, and everything was just kind of building things as I went on, and then I would do some things and then I would kind of retract and say, well, that's probably not gonna work out. It probably won't be as sturdy, and it probably will sag at the end because this thing's gonna be so long. So we'll take a look at where I'm at right now. We have these two right here. I'm gonna pull one of these out so you can see what I did. We'll pull out these pins so you'll see how easy this thing will be able to pull once it's all together. Obviously, these will all be connected and the whole thing will all be together. But once you pull this out, what we did here is this angle iron. I basically extended it so that way we had a bigger platform for this piece of wood to bolt onto. We're not using metal because I think that this wood is going to be sturdier just because we're able to have this whole platform here and this thickness here going in the direction that we are having the most force go. So hopefully that makes sense. But essentially this was the best way that I found out. I was going to do 1x6, but I decided to go with the 2x6 because it really isn't adding all that much weight for how much rigidity I think it would add. So we just got our 4 bolts here, and eventually we're gonna have to fiberglass over all of this so that way none of the weather gets to it, no water, nothing else. We're gonna have to be careful once it gets here, obviously, but that'll all be taken care of later on. But right now, if you take a look, this one obviously was good, but if you look at it, we have it set to the perfect height, and they are very sturdy. I've put a bunch of weight on it, and it moves the entire front end of the car. I'm really, really happy with the way this is turning out, and I believe that these two is gonna be more than good. You see my, you know, really basic tape line. This isn't exact or anything, but this is where I'm at. And I think that with these two there and everything else being fiberglass and using this rope, like one of my subscribers said, and fiberglassing over this to add rigidity to the fiberglass where I'm not gonna have, you know, big bulky wood, I think everything will work out, and I think it's gonna work out really well. So the next step is to get the big sheet of fiberglass that we made at the very beginning of this video and start cutting that out. We're not gonna be cutting it out to the exact shape or all the way back. I'm only gonna be cutting it from about here all the way up to the end. And so we will have to continue on and build that, and then we're gonna have to build the sides and the edge of the lip all the way around. But for right now, we're just gonna do this big sheet right here. And I think we're gonna try and screw it into here. And then from there, we'll be able to pull the whole thing off, fiberglass from the backside, and everything will be kind of set for us to start modifying it and making it look like the actual shape. So this thing is turning out really good so far. I'm really happy that I went with this direction. I'm gonna go ahead and keep working. We gotta sand these things flat, and it's coming along really good, and I'm really happy with the progression so far. So as you saw, I built the structure up top, and then we transferred it down to the bottom with other pieces of wood. That way we kept it exactly where it wants to be, exactly parallel with each other. One thing that I forgot that I really should do without moving on is we need to take everything apart before we start doing some fiberglass work and paint everything. These brackets out here, and then also especially the bracket that's going up into there, because once we remelt everything, nothing is 100% perfectly fixed. So this position could be different after we take it apart and paint it. That would mean that everything else would be changed, and we don't want this being any lower or higher than the other side. So obviously everything should be set and done before we start doing some fiberglass work. So I really should take all of this apart now that we have it pretty set up, and just paint everything, put a nice good coat of paint, bolt everything up exactly how it was, and then readjust everything if it needs adjustment, which I'm sure it will. I have once again changed my mind again. You guys have to really bear with me on this. I know it's really difficult to watch this stuff and watch me do things that I'm going to end up scrapping, but that is the process of this, and I don't really want to just show you, you know, from start to finish only what I really ended up using, because then you guys won't really know what I went through and what I tried to do, but you know, it failed in the end. So we have this wood here, and it's not really an issue. It could probably work, and it would work really well. My only concern is with adding all this extra weight, this is pretty heavy, and then by the time we add all of our reinforcement with the rope that we're gonna try, we add our sides and the lips all the way around, it's probably gonna add, you know, a little bit more weight. But that's really not even my main concern. Obviously, we are gonna be taking this structure away. This was just to hold these two in place and parallel with each other. But my main concern is this is already starting to crack, and over time, I think that this is going to move around, and this is really the only thing that is keeping all of this together and keeping it from sagging. And so my concern is because this, you know, could over time move around, I really just don't want that to happen, and I don't think it's worth it to, you know, go through all this just to have to, you know, redo this section at one point. And even if we redid this portion, we would have to completely remove this piece of wood and put a new piece of wood or something else in there, and I'm really just afraid of that. So I figured I would go pick up some metal, and I did that. I was able to pick up pretty much exactly what I wanted. This is 6 by almost 4 feet, which is exactly what we need. So I basically am gonna make these look exactly like these. We're probably going to put these up against here and weld them to those plates, and they're gonna be absolutely perfect, and they are not gonna have any movement at all, really. Any movement is gonna be at the chassis, and it's gonna move the whole car. Also, I got some extra angle iron. This stuff is actually pretty light, so I think that we're gonna try and put this up against the flat plate, weld it all together, and from there, it'll pretty much have the same exact surface area up top. Because this is about 1.5 inches and this is 1.5 inches, and from there it'll pretty much be exactly the same for how this would mount, just a ton more sturdy. I mean, it's gonna be significantly sturdy, and it will not move one bit at all. My only concern is weight. Obviously, everyone always wants to talk about how I always do everything the heaviest possible, but it's really just because my main concern is sturdiness, and I really just don't want the stuff to move around on me. Once we cut it down and weld everything up, honestly, we're probably only going to be adding about 10 pounds to the front end here, and it's not even really that big of a deal because out here it's going to be really thin, and as it goes back it's going to be thicker. But even with that extra 10 pounds that we're going to add, probably, we're really going to be adding so much more strength to it. This already is really strong right now. However, my fear is over time with movement, it'll loosen up those bolts. Even if we completely encase everything in resin, it's just gonna move around over time. So I figure we're in this for the long haul, we might as well do it right, and I'll take the extra couple pounds, figuring it's not like it matters anyways. So we'll take the extra couple pounds for the added strength. So yes, this is kind of a waste, but overall, the majority of what we've been doing, we've been taking 2 steps forward and 1 step back. So we're continuing to get progression. It's just a little bit slower because we figure things out as we go. So I'm gonna go ahead and get these cut out. Everything needs to be marked up, trimmed, whatever. We are gonna be keeping this length, even though it seems like it's super, super long right now. I'm sure once we pull this thing out and you see the profile, you'll see that this is what we need in order for the whole silhouette to look right. Speaking of silhouettes, we're going to be building a silhouette wing, and that's the main point. As we go up in the rear, we have to go out in the front to make it proportional and make it all look right. And as I look at more and more reference pictures, if I look at it the same exact angle that we're looking at it, it looks absolutely massive as well. And it's just what we got to do to make it look as correct as possible. Anyways, I'm going to go ahead and try and bang this out right now and as quick as possible, so that way we're not losing too much time. These front supports are now finished. We went ahead and put some angle iron on here. We got it stitch welded all the way across here, which will be plenty. The main point of this is to straighten these out. They were a little bit bent, but also just to keep it straight and just give it a little bit more rigidity, and so it doesn't flex that way quite as much, because the fiberglass isn't going to be all that strong. I just wanted this to be there just to help it out that much more. As you saw, I put all of my weight on here. I didn't do it all the way at the end, but you could see that all of my weight about halfway is more than enough. The weakest point in this whole thing is the bolts that hold up this bracket here. It does want to move a little bit. If I put all of my weight, it will try and sag it up, but I could just pull this up and it will move it back up. So I think we're gonna try and put some bigger washers and just really crank down on those exactly where they are, just to really keep those in place. Everything else is extremely rigid and will not move with any kind of weight, even at the very tip. It is very, very strong, and this will be able to more than carry the weight of the lip and be able to take, you know, probably a step if anyone does at any sort of show. Obviously, we're gonna have to put some cones around this or something if we go to a show. Hopefully people are cautious, but I'm just saying, worst case scenario, I think it would be able to handle it. So I'm happy we went with metal. It gives me some security, some peace of mind. It is significantly heavier. It's probably 20 pounds heavier than it would have been, but I'm okay with that. I'll take the 20 pounds over, you know, it 100% not sagging over time. Anyways, guys, if you are interested in helping out the channel, I have merchandise in my description. And that's gonna be it for today. Hope you enjoyed, and peace out.